Hey, what's up? For this video, I kind of wanted to go over briefly corruption and the closing of government agencies, largely led by Elon Musk's DOGE, as they call it. I kind of just wanted to do more of a relaxed, broad overview and just go over a few things. I don't really have much of an outline for this, so some of it I'll just be winging it. But first of all, I just want to start off by saying no matter where you stand politically, there's something that you have to admit to, and that is that both political parties, whether you are a Democrat or a Republican, uh, they take bribes in the forms of lobbying money, people helping them get reelected. Um, there are lobbying groups that literally straight up write out bills that they want certain members of Congress to push through Congress or to have introduced to be written into law. Literally just basically directly written by the lobbying groups, be it big tech or like the NRA or what have you. It happens. And they spend billions of dollars on campaigns, presidential, Congress. There is a ton of money involved in the political world. And you are fooling yourself no matter where you stand if you think it's not happening. On top of that, both parties also are guilty of insider trading. There's literally, it's not illegal for Congress to insider trade. Um, that's not a law for them, and it's not because both sides take full advantage of it. A lot of these people are in the know early on in committees before a bill even gets introduced into law, what companies are going to be benefiting and what companies are going to be hurting from legislation that goes through. And it's not rare for them to take advantage of it with investments. Again, this is both parties. I'll maybe pull that up later too. But I just wanted to say that first of all. So I'm not blatantly targeting a specific group of people. I'm targeting all of them with this statement. Um, so first, I'm going to pull up a website that I think is very useful if you're curious. So this website is opensecrets.org. What it does is it basically shows you all the lobbying money. So I've got like a prep one here. I pulled up Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, right? Republican Speaker of the House. Shows how much money he received in fundraising here. Um, Top contributor, American Israel Public Affairs. Okay, so what side of the Israel Palestine thing do you think he's on? What group do you think he's inclined to try and benefit? Literally top contributor, right? Um, but yeah, you can look at that. You could go. You can find just tons of stuff. You can go to the top. You can see. Let's grab a Democrat here, um, Hakeem Jeffries. Okay, let's just grab him. Take a look. Oh look, same group. American Israel Public Affairs, 700,000 for him. That's how much he's raised, spent, cash on hand. And while some people think that, well, yeah, but isn't this money just supposed to be spent on election and reelection? Sure, but it's not like you can't write campaign expenses traveled here to do some campaign work, and it turns out they traveled somewhere for a vacation, or they got a super awesome expensive meal using campaign funds. Like, yeah, I mean, you can pretty much say that all this money donated to you is going to your campaign, but still doing things that are fun or exciting. Or maybe you need a new vehicle to drive or whatever. Or you get first class tickets on planes instead of sitting coach or whatever. Well, campaign contributions, right? So opensecrets.org, really great website. It can show you what organizations, what PACs, what rich folks are doing. All right, so I pulled up the next website, kind of talking about Congress's stock trading. Uh, Unusual Whales is a website that a lot of people use for trading, and it also tracks Congress members and their gains, right? So if you look at this, uh, you can look at the portfolios of Congress for 2024 and look what their percentage gains were of these members of Congress, right? You can't say that they're doing this without any insider trading. Like it's their returns are absolutely insane. They Members of Congress outperform the top hedge funds, the top wealth management, like anybody who's like got a group that tries to make money off stock through ETFs or individual stocks will be outperformed by a lot of members of Congress very consistently. So, I mean, I'm just going to go over these top names, let you look at it, but almost 150% gains from David Rozier, Debbie Schultz, Democrat. Like I said, it's both parties. Debbie Schultz, Democrat, Ron Wyden, Democrat, Roger Williams, Pete Sessions, Susan Collins, Nancy Pelosi, Dan Crenshaw, like basically this. I think the yellow for like an average, I would assume. But as you can see, there's a lot of people who outdo that. But anyways, so that's that. Now I'm gonna go into the rest of what this video is kind of about, right? Which is first of all, I guess I'm gonna bring up some new executive orders. I didn't mean to include these initially on this video, but since it kind of fits in very well with what I'm talking about, let's just go ahead and cover those two. So today, Trump signed an executive order pausing enforcement on the foreign bribery ban. Okay, so this has been a law basically for a very long time. It prevents U.S. businesses or people from basically bribing foreign governments that allow a business or something to succeed there, right? Now, I think most people would agree that bribery is bad. They're saying the pause is to avoid putting U.S. businesses at an economic disadvantage. That is just absolutely ridiculous. Bribery is wrong. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that. I believe it's John F. Kennedy who put this in place first. Maybe this says here. Hmm, oh, here we go. Became law in 1977. Law was amended in 1998. Uh, but yeah. Anyways, it's kind of a strange executive order. I've spent a lot of time talking about the billionaires and how involved they are in Trump's presidency. It's no doubt this pause has something to do with JD Vance and others talking about how European countries and whatnot are talking about Facebook and Twitter and whatnot. And then you probably have like other countries where they just want to do business and you can't really get a line in the door unless you bribe somebody. That's what they're going to say. But it shouldn't be a thing. It's absolutely ridiculous to think that stopping people from bribing is bad. And then that's going to bring me to another executive order that Donald Trump overturned when he came back into office this year, which was so this is Executive Order 13989. It's put in by Biden. I think there might have been one that was very similar to this before him. But so what this executive order was says order aims to ensure that those in the executive branch will not accept bribes from lobbyists, engage in activities with a former employer, communicate with outsiders about the work they do, accept money from a former employer, and that they will make hirings based on a person's qualifications with the goal of restoring and maintaining public trust in the government. Now that sounds good. Everything in here sounds pretty good. Yeah, the executive branch of the government should not accept bribes. That's great. Trump got rid of this executive order. He overturned it. He did not place something new with slightly different wording. So again, very strange that the executive branch and his cabinet and whatnot, bribing, totally cool. Engaging in activities that might not be the best for national security or for non-corruption. Nope, it's not important, I guess. So this was a good executive order, but it got removed. All right, now into the meat and potatoes. Now that I covered the executive orders and my opening about how, lobbying is bad, insider trading is bad, should be common sense things, but hey, our government participates in it. So now I want to get into like what Elon Musk's going through, right? And one of the biggest ones they've been talking about is the USAID agency, which is the one that has basically been shut down. Um, so what I've got up here is the 2024. Looks like they gave out around 30 billion in USAID for that year. Now, I want to state Elon Musk, and if you look at Twitter, there's a lot of people posting line items, right, for some crazy things and saying, oh, look, this is wasted, this is fraud. I just want to start off by saying if it is fraud, fraud is illegal. There should be criminal charges on anything they find to actually be fraud. So if they aren't filing criminal charges on something that they claim is fraud, don't believe that it's fraud. Instead, it is much more likely that it's just something they don't like or they don't agree with, but that the funds were appropriated for that thing. If it's fraud, bring it to the courts. It is illegal. Let's charge whoever's responsible. But if it's something you don't like or don't support, that doesn't mean that the money wasn't allocated there in the first place. It's just something you disagree with, but not illegal. Now, if you're unfamiliar, US aid, it basically gives money to a lot of humanitarian efforts and charities that do work outside the United States. That's basically what it is. Sorry, my throat's tickly. I'm going to have a drink of coffee. Might help. But so one of the things that got posted on Twitter that they found was, I'll use as an example, the Lutheran charity, the big Lutheran charity had received a lot of money for USAID. So what the government does is it doesn't necessarily award the money directly to where it goes from USAID, right? They work with other partners, other humanitarian efforts, other charities, nonprofits. They give the money to them, and then that nonprofit uses it for the effort, right? So the Lutheran charity, which I know a lot of Lutherans, there's a lot around me where I live. Um, it's a fairly good church from my standards. I'm not really that religious myself, but they do a lot of good things, and I know a lot of Lutherans are mostly pretty good people, and I know that they support their Lutheran charities and the charity work that their church does. But on Twitter, it had people freaking out like, "Oh, we're giving millions of dollars to this charity to spend on these things." Well, yeah, I mean, they're spending it on humanitarian efforts, trying to do the right thing, which, in the mind of Jesus, I believe he said stuff about giving back, helping the poor, helping the less fortunate, helping the needy. Now, you might disagree with it, but that doesn't make it fraud. The funds were allocated here. And now, USAID, on top of that, this institution was created by Congress. The president and the executive branch does not have the ability to shut it down like he's trying to do. That's why one of the courts already blocked it. And you maybe, if you followed along, uh, there's been some talk about, oh, just ignore the courts. Well, that kind of eliminates our system of checks and balances, which is really important in keeping a certain branch of the government from becoming too powerful. But that's kind of the rundown on USAID. And there's some other stuff too that they're posting for like line items, right? Like I think one of the things Trump claimed was like $50 million in condoms, and then he changed it to like $100 million in condoms. But the reality is that's like not what it was, right? It's like it's more along the lines of aid donated to oh, what's the word? Basically like safe sex, protective sex measures in like certain countries that have a huge problem with like HIV and AIDS and stuff like that. So it's like funding not specifically for condoms, but like funding to help, eliminate the spread of HIV or AIDS, right? And condoms will be a small portion of that cost, no doubt, but it's not like we're spending $50 million on condoms. That's absolutely ridiculous. So just because you see like a line item or something that they're claiming, I definitely invite you to like fact check and look into like all these crazy claims that are being made because there is so much just blatant lying going on with what your tax dollars are going to try and upset people, to try and make people freak out like, "Oh, why is my money being spent on this?" Now, if you just don't want your money being spent outside the United States, that's fine. It's understandable, but it's not fraud. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't fraud because, like I brought up with early on, there is corruption, there is greed within Congress. So now the question is, for the instances of fraud, which no doubt when you're talking about this many people, this many organizations that work with USAID, this many people involved in USAID, the people involved in Congress that okay the amount of money to go to USAID. Now, is there some stuff that's questionable in there that should be looked at? Absolutely. But you need to find out who's responsible for the fraud, if there is fraud, or the things that shouldn't be happening. Is it Congress? Is it somebody within USAID? Is it one of the organizations that USAID gave to that was supposed to do something with that money for these charities or nonprofits or humanitarian efforts? Did they misuse the funds? Because you can't necessarily blame USAID if you find a problem. You can't necessarily blame Congress if you find a problem. It might be the company that they're working with or the organization that they're working with that sorry did the misuse of funds. And then if there is in fact fraud, you bring it to court. It's illegal. So I just see so much going on with people freaking out specifically about USAID. Um, and not just that, but the other institutions as well. There's so many moving parts that even when there is crime being committed or something fraudulent, it's not necessarily the institution itself or the people who fund the institution. It could be the group that they're working with. Or I guess I want to also put it this way, right? Like, let's say I hire a contractor, okay? And I pay the contractor to do some work on my house. Now, let's say the contractor takes that money that I paid him to do the work on my house and he buys drugs with it. And then he sells the drugs to kids. I am not funding drugs to kids. I funded the contractor for work he did for me. You would be crazy to insinuate that I am responsible for kids getting drugs just because I hired a contractor who worked on my house and then ended up selling drugs to kids. But that's like some of the stuff you're also seeing, right? Like, oh, we gave money to this group in Egypt, and then this group in Egypt also gave money to this thing, and that group gave money to this known terrorist organization. Like, you're making so many leaps that it's just blatant insanity. It's the same type of shit that you saw last presidential term, right? Like, uh, Hunter Biden received money working for Ukraine, money that maybe he wasn't qualified to work that job or to get that big of payments, which is probably true. They probably, because of his name, they probably gave him a good job and good pay, right? But it doesn't mean they're getting their back scratched. And then they're like, oh, but then on top of this, there's this check that Hunter Biden wrote to his dad for $5,000, so it's clearly a bribe. Well, no, Hunter Biden might have gotten paid under strange circumstances, right? We can all agree on that, I think, no matter which side of the political party you're on. But him giving his dad $5,000 doesn't mean that his dad was being bribed. It means he owed his dad $5,000. So he's paying back his dad. It's that same type of thing. Like, you shouldn't be able to leap and say just because money that USAID allocated to another nonprofit or institution or humanitarian effort or charity, and then that person somewhere along the lines also gave money to something that went to something bad, doesn't make USAID responsible. It should make sense. That's not how life works. Like, you in your own life have undoubtedly given money to somebody who used that money in a negative manner. Or maybe somebody gave you money that you used in a negative manner. But that doesn't put the person who once upon a time gave you money at fault. Now, moving along, since I kind of carried on about that for a long time, another big problem that I have with specifically Elon Musk and DOGE doing these audits or going through this with coding is if you want to do audits, what you really should do is have people who specialize in that type of thing. And it should be a party that doesn't really have anything to gain or lose from doing said audit. It should be people who are willing to investigate instead of just post line items on Twitter, like, oh, we gave money to this, and just start flooding the world in the media with a bunch of random things without doing any investigation whatsoever, right? Because, like I said, we're not seeing court cases. for illegal fraud, at least not yet. Um, so I just feel like they're not really qualified to be doing what they're doing. Uh, and it's a conflict of interest. It might be interesting to know that U.S. aid, amongst many other things that Elon Musk has been working to get rid of, has put investigations into Elon Musk's company. U.S. aid, they were investigating Musk's Starlink with Ukraine, making sure that he was doing what he was supposed to with the money USAID gave him for the Starlink satellites to be used for Ukraine in its conflict against Russia. Then you also have like the FFA, whose head was fired as soon as Trump came into office, uh, was fining Elon Musk for SpaceX and telling him he couldn't do any more launches until they figured out why his rocket exploded. They wanted to figure out what the problem is so it didn't happen again. So they fined him and delayed further launches. Then on top of that, you have Tesla, National Highway and Traffic Safety Administration, had been investigating him for Tesla's autopilot system. Um, and there's been a ton of investigations into Musk through Tesla and his autopilot system, claiming that, well, Musk claims, that the drive assist works way better than it does. And so he basically has blatantly lied about how far along his driverless driving is, or God, what's the word I'm looking for? Autonomous driving is, excuse me. And to try and shed blame for the crashes it's had, even though if you listen to him talk in public, he talks about how great it is, how well it works, and it's updated like that. Then on top of that, you've got the FDA with the government. Oh, weird. Also investigating Elon Musk and wanting to look into his Neuralink facilities, which is the brain implant that he's been working on. So all these government agencies that Elon Musk has been targeting and going after have had a bone to pick with Elon Musk's own companies. That's literally crazy. It is a huge conflict of interest to have the guy who has been investigated and has had multiple problems with these government agencies being the one responsible for investigating and trying to shut down the government agencies. Like I I just I struggle to understand how people don't get this. They can just say, "Oh, he's doing great work. Look at all the fraud and all the wasted money he's found." Do you think that he's going to find any fraud or issues with any of the money that he's gotten over the years? Elon Musk has gotten, as of like 2018, he had gotten like $20 billion from the United States government through various agencies and organizations. On top of that, he gets huge government contracts through SpaceX, Starlink. Um, he got huge subsidies for electric cars with Tesla. Like the US government made Elon Musk into the richest man in the world. It's not even exaggerating. Like, if not for the US government and all the help that they gave Elon Musk and his companies over the last 20 years didn't happen, he would not be the richest man in the world. But now the companies exist, they are big, they are fully functioning. Now he cares about not having regulations and not having things that block him from making money and doing what he wants to do. And magically, he is so involved in this administration that he is the one that gets to investigate and cut funds from these agencies. And not only that, not only is it his own companies that he has stuff that he doesn't want halted from them, competitors. If government agencies are giving money to his competitors, he can say, no, no, this company shouldn't get this money. They're doing these weird things, or I just need to shut down this agency because look at all the money that they're giving away when they could be giving to his competitors or people that do things better than he does. It, it's just a disgusting way of Elon to make sure that Elon is taken care of. And it's really sickening to see how many people support this. Like, I fear that Republicans aren't looking at it the same way that they would have before Donald Trump got elected. Like, I know so many Republicans that did not like Elon Musk. They did not like the fact that he was given all this money by Democrat run administrations, by Congress. They just had a problem with him in general and the way he acted. But he literally switched teams to a team that has more benefits for him right now because he already got everything he wanted out of the left. And suddenly they're like, yeah, this guy's great. He's doing a great job. He should totally be in charge as a private citizen, non government employee of doing all this stuff for the government. And rather than having a team that's specifically, you know, situated to investigate audit for fraud or for where money's going, it's a team of 19 to 26-year-olds that specifically are good at like coding and things like that. Even more crazy, let's say Elon does get, let's say these government institutions do get shut down, right? Or they run on bare bones, which is kind of what their goal is, I think. If they can't close them, they just want them to run bare bones. How long until we hear that Elon Musk's AI or a computer program instead of people are going to be running these agencies? And an AI or a computer program will get to decide where the money goes. And heaven forbid that this AI or computer program or whatever business, private business owns this software is going to make a fortune off the government instead of regular hardworking people. It's just going to go to a giant corporation instead. So, I mean, no matter how you feel about whether something's right or not, that it they get money, and believe me, there's a ton of stuff that I don't agree with that gets money, but I understand that that doesn't make it illegal and it doesn't make it fraud. It just means I kind of object to where the money ends up. But that doesn't mean I want all the people who rely on that assistance to be screwed or all the people who work to be screwed only for that money to end up going to giant corporations, which are going to go to the people on top and not ordinary people. And I mean, charity work and humanitarian efforts across the world. Yeah, we are the richest country in the world. We are the most successful country in the world. We have the best economy in the world. If we're not willing to spend a little bit of our money to help these people, who is? Right? Like, there's a lot of good causes that some money goes to. And especially for how Christian the right supposedly is, uh, the teachings of Jesus should really come to your mind on if you have it well off, what can you do for those less fortunate than yourself? Um, but yeah, that's just kind of my thoughts on all this. Um, I just find it a little disgusting. I might update this as time goes on and we find out more or what other agencies or if there is fraud. I mean, I'll gladly look into that too. But just do do some googling. Don't just listen to every meme you see on Facebook or Twitter. Don't just believe literally everything that you read. Um, look into it because there's so much that goes into this, so many people that rely on it, both for workers and people who receive um, some of this. That yeah, there are bad people in the government. There are bad people in positions of power, but try and think of who the money's helping and who benefits from this money to stop helping, basically. Like if you don't see how much Elon and the billionaires of the United States serve to gain off of this, it just look into it, research it, do some more. Don't just believe everything you read. Uh, thank you, and I'll see you next time.